The abbreviation housing and communal services is well known to everyone. It hides a whole range of familiar images. At the same time, digitalization and the use of artificial intelligence in this context are not the first to be recalled. The utility sector is no stranger to high technology. It's just that it's not always noticeable to the user. Naked Science explains how artificial intelligence, big data, neural networks, and machine learning make urban infrastructure more reliable and efficient. The first material of our series about AI is devoted to the definition of the concept of artificial intelligence, the history of its development, and the main milestones of scientific and technological progress related to it. It also describes the main nuances of classifying such algorithms. But in this text, we will have to briefly return to the subtleties of terminology in order to narrow down the definitions a little. The first thing that is important to mention is that in computer science, the concept of artificial intelligence is practically not used in the context of applied tasks. This term is more often used by marketers and journalists to briefly describe a whole range of technologies, methods, and approaches: big data, neural networks, machine learning. To simplify it very much, then AI, in the understanding familiar to the modern mass reader, is a neural network algorithm trained on a certain set of data to solve problems that are difficult for ordinary programs, deterministic algorithms. Strictly speaking, there are no physical obstacles to creating a program capable of recognizing images, finding the best route, and identifying the best performing janitor without any neural networks, even without machine learning. It just requires taking into account all the nuances of its use in advance when writing its code, immediately create a set of any triggers, and determine the necessary actions in response to their triggering. From the outside, such a product will look little different from modern programs with an AI note in the name or description. And, in a sense, it will be a weak artificial intelligence, just with an incredibly narrow field of application. Machine learning allows you to circumvent the problem of having to anticipate all possible outcomes in advance. Moreover, sometimes it is impossible to accurately predict anything at all. Many tasks require probabilities. This is where trainable algorithms come to the rescue. The main thing is to find enough relevant data to train them. They reveal patterns that are hidden or simply not obvious to humans and work well with stochastic processes, during which many variables change randomly. For convenience and simplicity, we will further refer to any trained algorithm as a neural network, and let's designate this term, albeit a little conditionally, as a synonym for artificial intelligence. It is also necessary to determine what is generally hidden behind the abbreviation of housing and communal services, in addition to colorful images. In a general sense, everything related to providing the population with the benefits of civilization, that is, water supply, electricity, heat, communications, sewerage, as well as a comfortable urban environment. Such an environment consists of serviceable houses with courtyards around them and a certain set of basic household services, for example, garbage collection and cleaning of publicly accessible territories. If we interpret housing and communal services quite broadly, then it includes the entire urban infrastructure in general, from roads and bridges to transport and city administration. From the point of view of Russian legislation, housing and communal services is a complex of subsectors that ensures the functioning of engineering infrastructure, various buildings and settlements, and creates convenience and comfort for citizens to live and stay in them by providing them with a wide range of housing and communal services. Let's focus on this option. Housing and communal services is a complex of services for supplying the housing stock with water, fuel, gas, in the case of Russia, heat, electricity, and ensuring its safe operation. The last point involves garbage collection and sewage disposal, as well as cleaning, maintenance, and repair of all related infrastructure, including water pipes, power lines, and household appliances, elevators, water pumps, intercoms, electrical equipment. We also do not forget about yards, parks, squares, playgrounds, and sports grounds, as well as dog walking areas. They all need to be kept in order. The list can go on for a long time, but the gist is clear. What place can artificial intelligence find in all this? Neural networks perform well in tasks that require image and voice recognition. This area of artificial intelligence is not unique to housing and communal services, but it would be a crime not to mention it. The fact is that any municipal organization in its work is obliged to respond promptly and efficiently to a huge number of requests from users, ordinary citizens, on whose money they exist. It costs a lot to maintain a staff of telephone dispatchers, operators, for each district of a city or a separate settlement. In addition, it is impossible to calculate the load on the control rooms in advance. In the event of an incident or just a malfunction, it may be impossible to get through. The work of these structures can be optimized and made more efficient and economical. Solutions have been around for a long time, and many have been developed. This is the widest range of software and hardware complexes for contact centers. Among them, there are personnel management systems, WFM, that predict the load on first-line operators using AI, answering robots that recognize complex verbal messages, and even full-fledged voice assistants. However, it is important to take into account one nuance. In order to use them effectively, it is necessary to modernize the structure of the good old control rooms of housing and communal services, separating the tasks of processing incoming requests from them. Then the employees will not perform the roles of both a telephone operator and a dispatcher in one person. The process becomes much more efficient. AI takes the load off the first line of the contact center, standard calls and help. Live operators handle requests that require human attention, which the robot could not handle, and dispatchers coordinate the work of field services and monitor the quality of requests. There are many domestic products in this area, and some of them have already been adapted to the specifics of companies operating in the housing and communal services sector. Sometimes unique solutions are developed. In the capital, for example, artificial intelligence has been used on the line of a single dispatch center since the fall of 2020. Initially, the voice assistant was launched in order to unload the line during the peak start of the heating season. Now the robot is able to answer calls from citizens on more than 100 topics and processes almost a third of the total volume of requests received by the EDC. Most often, Muscovites turn to a voice assistant for heating and cleaning, lighting in the entrance, elevator repairs, plumbing in apartments. The robot can not only accept a request for a master's call, but also learns to give advice to a person on the most common issues. Since 2020, he has already received more than 2.5 million calls, said Andrei Savitsky, head of the Metropolitan Citywide Contact Center. Traditionally, the dispatching services of housing and communal services cover 3 areas of work at once: monitoring the current state of the subordinate economy, coordinating its services, and at the same time promptly responding to consumer questions, help, notification of accidents, acceptance of requests for unscheduled maintenance. For small utility companies, it is acceptable to assign these tasks at once to employees of the same level, dispatchers. But in the case of large cities, the division of labor of the operator, dispatcher, and telephone operator becomes an urgent necessity. Traditionally, the dispatching services of housing and communal services cover 3 areas of work at once: monitoring the current state of the subordinate economy, coordinating its services, and at the same time promptly responding to consumer questions, help, notification of accidents, acceptance of requests for unscheduled maintenance. For small utility companies, it is acceptable to assign these tasks at once to employees of the same level, dispatchers. But in the case of large cities, the division of labor of the operator, dispatcher, and telephone operator becomes an urgent necessity. Communication between citizens and public utilities can be not only oral, but also more formal, on paper. Anyone who has ever tried to apply for an electricity connection in rural areas can imagine how painful the paperwork in housing and communal services can be. If only all the required certificates, applications, and receipts could be sent in advance to check the correctness and completeness of the package of documents. A dream. By the way, her incarnation is just around the corner. Rose Reister, for example, is already actively testing such functionality for contacting its profile in the MFC. The software solution used contains artificial intelligence technologies for digitizing paper documents. Another interesting implementation of image recognition is tracking violations of the operation of houses and yards on video surveillance cameras. If the previous two examples are theoretically implemented by a deterministic algorithm that takes into account many different conditions of use, then neural networks are definitely necessary here. Cameras may have different viewing angles, the degree of optical contamination, and lighting conditions, but the program should still notice debris on the lawn, icicles on eaves, snow on roofs, and broken fences. The concept is being worked out by several Russian IT companies at once and is being tested in some cities. In Moscow, artificial intelligence has been helping city services detect violations in the maintenance of courtyards and streets for several years. The neural network, pre-trained on a large volume of images, analyzes screenshots from the cameras of the city's video surveillance system and is able to find 20 types of flaws on them. For example, it can identify an overflowing dumpster, a hole in the road, or uncollected snow. The Center for Automatic Recording of Administrative Offenses, SAFE-AP, which we are developing jointly with the state institution New Management Technologies, uses images from more than 170,000 video surveillance cameras. In addition to the operators, they are analyzed by an artificial neural network. If the AI finds signs of a violation, it signals this to the person. He can only double-check the result of the neural network and, if the defect is confirmed, transfer the information to the public utilities. Thus, artificial intelligence helps to identify and eliminate violations in the maintenance of courtyards and streets faster and more efficiently, which means making the city even more comfortable to live in, said Dmitry Golovin, head of the Urban Video Surveillance Department of the Moscow Information Technology Department. The tasks of analyzing images and sounds are faced by AI not only in the communal sphere, but also for it. It adapts to this area relatively simply. Another strong point of neural networks is high efficiency in cases where it is required to work with probabilities, random events, and implicit relationships. It should definitely be expected in specific software created for the needs of housing and communal services. For example, to plan the renovation of housing and communications, this is exactly the kind of AI proposed in the Smart City project of the Ministry of Construction. Among the most obvious applications of neural networks is the planning of the movement of garbage trucks and harvesting machines. Their routes run not only along the streets, but also along the adjacent territories, sidewalks, and must take into account many little things. Conventional navigation software can't handle this, so now only human labor is used for this. Artificial intelligence may well optimize this task. Moreover, it will not be a problem for him to take into account a whole range of additional factors, such as the schedule of educational institutions in the area and the work schedule of janitors. A number of similar developments, in addition to AI using Internet of Things technologies, are being operated by Russian utilities in a test mode, but the tests have not been completed yet, and we will evaluate the results in the future, albeit in the near future. Neural network algorithms in the energy, water supply, and sanitation sectors have great prospects. The daily fluctuations in the workload of these three pillars of public utilities force engineers to build a significant safety margin in the appropriate infrastructure. And this in turn increases the cost of its construction and operation, which in turn affects tariffs. In addition, the energy industry of the future will necessarily be more and more green, which means there will be more unstable energy sources. Wind turbines and solar panels depend on the vagaries of nature. Consumption peaks need to be balanced with storage devices or backup generating capacities. The process of AI training for balancing the power grid. The blue line is the actual load. The yellow line is the expected one in case of optimal regulation. For the first 9 hours, the neural network learns and experiments by choosing different behavioral strategies. Fine, tuning the model from 9 o'clock to about 17, and after 18 o'clock, the AI already manages the load on the network almost perfectly. This is where AI comes to the rescue. Analyzing the current infrastructure, neural networks can notice the relationships and dependencies of components that were previously overlooked or not seen at all. Based on such a fresh machine view, A modernization project is being developed that not only improves people's quality of life, but also becomes more efficient than its predecessor. And the more efficient the infrastructure, the friendlier it is towards the environment and the user's pocket. Artificial intelligence is already being used in urban infrastructure planning and balancing power grids. Most importantly, neural networks are good at processing big data. This is a direct route to monitoring hundreds of thousands of parameters from a myriad of sensors, which in the coming years will begin to equip the Russian housing and communal services. Moreover, if ordinary programs are only able to track a finite number of indicators, then AI draws conclusions from the relationship between data from different sensors. Such hardware and software complexes allow for a proactive response to infrastructure wear and tear, pipelines, power grids, and equipment. The main thing is that a significant proportion of them are equipped with the necessary sensors, although it is examined by people who then enter strictly regulated assessments into the system. It will also work, just less quickly and efficiently. Artificial intelligence, or more precisely machine learning technologies, is a powerful tool capable of increasing labor productivity in any field of human activity, and the housing and communal services sector should be no exception. But like any other tool, it requires masterful use. Moreover, no technology in itself is a universal magic wand that magically instantly eliminates all possible problems. The effect of modernization is not always immediately noticeable. In other words, the AI brand alone in the names of the technologies used is definitely not enough. It requires the painstaking work of many professionals and the systematic introduction of innovations. Fortunately, Russian universities annually graduate thousands of young specialists in specialized specialties, and domestic companies develop their own solutions to optimize processes in housing and communal services. Our country is moving towards the introduction of high technologies in this field. However, there is still a lot of work ahead.